the only way to travel when I'm feeling low. I like to get on a train, it's good for the soul. I'm a wandering spirit, I have a one-track mind. I'm getting out of this city and I'm going down the line. I hear an overdriven guitar with the ancient hums, and the beating of the speakers is the sound of the drums. I hear the whistle blowing, chills run down my spine. I'm getting out of this city and I'm going down the line.
G'day, I'm Scott McGregor. Welcome to my adventures down the line, and welcome to the fantastic South Island of New Zealand.
New Zealand, the first country in the world to see the sun rise every day. And on the South Island, it rises on a rugged and spectacular landscape. Mountains that have become the destination of the thrill seeker, the nature lover, and the railway adventurer like me. Those mountains were a real challenge to the pioneering railway builders, but they created some of the most remarkable journeys on the planet. The Southern Alps are just one facet of the South Island, a place that seems to reflect a very special character, something I like to call New Zealiana.
Some routes, like this one here, hug the coast to avoid the mountains. Others had no choice but to go over them or through them to service the farming communities and gold miners that needed access to the ports on the coast. And there's some great scenery on these lines. And I thought, what better way to start this adventure than on a train?
This is the Transcoastal that runs from Picton, where it meets the ferry from the North Island, down to Christchurch.
The route takes us between the rugged Pacific coastline and the dramatic Kaikoura Mountains that rise spectacularly from the narrow coastal plain here. It took over 80 years to complete this line, from 1864 right through to 1945, which makes it the longest railway project in the history of New Zealand. And thank goodness they did finish it, because look what we've got here today.
Because New Zealand's such a mountainous country, there's lots of rivers running down to the coast. That means bridges. On this 350-kilometre line, there's 175 of them. And this one here's a beauty, a double-decker across the Taieri River.
And 21 tunnels. Don't forget your tunnel etiquette before you go into the tunnel.
The line took so long to build because the government couldn't decide whether it should run inland first or along the coast. Eventually, they decided on the coastal route. Then in the 1900s, construction was held up by the two world wars and the 1930s depression. Finally, the last spike was driven in at this little place, Kaikoura, and the line was finished.
Now, it's definitely worth a stop over here because the old station building has been given a new lease of life.
It's now the headquarters of Whale Watch, a Maori-owned tour company.
What a trip. From a train station to a whale station. Not bad.
100 years ago, Kaikoura was a whaling station. Now, instead of hunting them, it's the perfect place to watch them and all the other creatures that inhabit the East Coast. Meet my mate Thomas Cow from Whale Watch. Thomas's people came to the Kaikoura area over 900 years ago in search of food and new places to live.
Slowing down, Thomas. Where are we coming into, mate?
They certainly found what they were looking for, because not only was the land teeming with wildlife, but the waters along the coast were rich in all kinds of marine life, including dolphins and seals. But it's the whales that are the big draw card here. They're in the area practically all year round. And it wasn't long before we started sighting them.
There she blows! Just like a big submarine. So he's spending, you know, the next 5 minutes on here just recharging the system for the next dive.
Or catching his breath.
Virtually.
And then when he dives, how long does he go down for?
They normally dive around here for about 45, 50 minutes. They can stay under the water for a maximum of about 2 hours.
These are young male sperm whales that have been kicked out of their family groups because they got a bit too frisky with the females. They come here to feed and grow up, and they stay in the area for around 10 to 15 years.
So what's the significance of the whales to the Maori?
Well, basically, they were considered an atua. An atua is like a demigod. They were held in high respect. They were considered an animal of greater significance to Māori. Well, there he goes. He's about to dive now.
I see.
Scott.
There he goes. Oh, it's fantastic. I could stay here and admire these creatures all day. But a little bit further down the track, on the way to Christchurch, is another giant I want to visit. And this one blows smoke. Well, she's a pretty magnificent beast, this one, Christine.
It was built in 1909.
Christine Reichfeld is a volunteer guard at Weka Pass.
She's,
And if she's not clipping tickets, she's looking for the next chance to ride the footplate on A428.
So she's definitely queen of the line here.
Oh, absolutely. She's definitely queen of the tracks here.
Yeah, right.
Yes, and we're due to get her hooked up with the carriages. So if you'd like a ride to the station, then hop on in.
A428 was built in 1909 for the North Island Limited. But she ended up here on the South Island in 1969. When the Weka Pass was formed in the early 1980s, they bought her and restored her. Now she runs along their line from Glenmark Station to Kaikoura. And look at that, right next door to the station today, a whole paddock full of New Zealiana. Why do people drive trains? And why do people restore tractors and old farm machinery? And why do people dress up? I don't know, but gee, it's fun. And that's what the Waipara Vintage Festival is all about. To these people, there's nothing like getting out on a Saturday afternoon and cutting a bit of chaff.
Mate, you look the part in your garb, you look great. Look at this, all belt-driven. The old chaff cutter. She's a beauty.
Isn't she?
These were the days when you needed manpower to keep the operation going.
And woman power. There's a woman over there too.
Oh, there's a woman too.
That's
oh,
right.
sorry.
Terribly important.
Maybe it's time I got on board. Weka Pass Railway runs along the old Waiu branch line, up as far as Kaikoura. It opened in 1882 and closed in 1978, having the sad distinction of being the last branch line in the province of Canterbury. But the remaining part of the line has been put to excellent use. It's a good track with lots of interesting countryside to look at.
He's probably one of the best dog trainers around, and
Absolutely amazing.
Neil's wife, Margaret, she does a bit of dog training. In fact, Neil met her when he was judging a trial down here many years ago, and Margie was timekeeping. I'm not sure if he got the result right at the end of the day because the windows were getting pretty steamed up.
Good. Gee, she does a nice turn of speed, doesn't she? Okay. works beautifully.
But I soon discovered that Christine's passions aren't only for steam.
Oh, look, Scott, look at this lovely little baby Austin. Isn't she gorgeous? Look at the wee window and the wee wiper.
Wee window. I
Wiper.
mean, the Austin's great. I mean, it's sweet. But what about the beautiful Rolls Royce? What do you like about Austin so much?
Nah, not a patch on this dear little Austin. It's so cute.
They said that Weka Pass would make this engine work hard. I didn't realise it needed coal all the time. There you go, guys. That's a lonely job. Waikarri Station, end of the line for the Weka Pass Railway. And it's so often the case here in New Zealand, you get off the train to something like this. The spectacular Southern Alps. And what better way to finish off a heady day like this than with a grand parade. And wouldn't you know it, Christine's a bit partial to a good-looking tractor too. Christine, look at this.
Oh, let's take it for a ride.
I'll tell you what,
Look,
it's
pretty
alive.
good. Wow, this is wonderful. Yeah, gosh, she's pretty jumpy, isn't she? Very different from A428.
No doubt about you, Christine. You're a slave to a good machine. Christine, come back, come back. Well, we're only about an hour out of Christchurch now. I tell you, I'm getting pretty excited because in a few days' time, there's a very special train trip leaving from Christchurch, heading up over Arthur's Pass, hauled by steam. And we're going to be on it. But in the meantime, don't worry, we've got heaps to do. Like having a good look around Christchurch. It's considered to be the most English of New Zealand cities, and it's also home to some notable firsts. Christchurch was home to the first public railway in New Zealand. It's also the only city to have its own tramway system. Sorry, Doug, carry on, mate. Driver's compartment, goes to my head. This is Doug, and he's been driving this tram for about 5 years. He tells me he thoroughly enjoys it. There's Canterbury University. It was the first uni in the British Empire to admit female students. Ernest Rutherford went there. He was the first bloke to split the atom in 1919. They thought so much of him, they put his moniker on the $100 bill. He ended up winning the Nobel Prize. So what are the bell signals?
The bell signals are quite good. We've got one bell means stop, or come to a stop if you've got a conductor. 2 bells, let's go, and 3 means reverse. 4 means let's all go to the pub.
Really? Look out for the lady in the tutu here, Doug.
Yes, wow.
And what could be more English than this? Meet Ben Lander. He works from the old Antigua boat sheds on the River Avon, happily punting people up and down in true English fashion. How pleasant is this? Very gentle. You're right, it's really quite stable.
Oh, yeah. Well, until you do this.
I was soon to find out that underneath that studious exterior, Ben was a bit of a devil. Pull your head in, Ben. Oh. He's done that before, the smart aleck. I'm not sure if I'm in such good hands here with old Benjamin. Absolutely nothing, half so worth doing as simply messing about in boats. Simply messing. Well, that's what Kenneth Graham wrote in his book Wind in the Willows. And right now, I have to agree with him.
A punt is a traditional flat-bottom boat from Oxford or Cambridge in England. Isn't that right, Ben?
Oh, yes, yes. It's,
And a punter is the guy who does all the hard work while I sit back and enjoy the beautiful botanical gardens here in Christchurch.
But in true McGregor form, I couldn't sit still for long. I just had to have a go.
if it does get stuck, be sure and let go of it. That's the only rule.
Why am I likely to go overboard, am I?
Well, it has happened.
Look out, mate, I've got my learner plates on.
And now swing it while it's in the water. That's it.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
Ben, I know what's wrong. Give me your hat.
Oh, sure. Oh, no. Oh,
Come on,
good
put
Lord,
the hat
no.
on, mate. It's only been around New Zealand and everywhere else.
Probably come down with some awful skin disease. And mind those ducklings, mate. Yeah, mate, you know.
So are you a Christchurch boy? Be a nice place to grow up, mate. It's a lovely city.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I fell in the river a few times when I was a kid. I was chasing the ducks, and actually nothing's changed. I still fall in the river, I still chase ducks.
You just sit back and relax, old chum.
Are you sure, Scotty?
I'll do all the work.
Are you sure, mate?
Bridge coming up.
Time to head south now. I want to get to Dunedin, and for me, that means hitching a ride in a freighter. You see, at the moment, there are no passenger trains. Now, this shouldn't be too much of a problem. If only I can get this bloke to stop.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Yeah, right, good.
Where are you taking your freighter today?
Oh, Timaru.
Can I go as far as Ashburton?
Yeah, no problem,
Yeah?
mate. Yep. Jump aboard.
You're away.
Yeah,
How are
welcome
you,
aboard
mate?
953 to Timaru. Yep.
Why Ashburton? Well, they tell me there's a salvage job there that's just out of this world.
Here at Ashburton, on the southern edge of the Canterbury Plain, there's a couple of pieces of New Zealand's rail history that are definitely worth a look at. This is A64. She was built way back in 1873, which makes her the oldest operating steam locomotive in New Zealand. Isn't she a beauty? She was built as a workhorse for the railways, helped to lay a lot of track in the late 1800s. But have a look at this. This is K88, the Washington. An American-built loco, also from the 1870s, a time when New Zealand railways were really expanding. Isn't she fantastic? Let's have a look.
K88 was the first American loco to be brought to New Zealand and actually headed the first Christchurch to Dunedin Express in 1878.
She's running beautifully.
But the remarkable thing about it is that after her working life was over, she was buried in a riverbank for 46 years and became a complete wreck.
As we know, most old locomotives were simply scrapped when they reached the end of their working lives. But down here in the South Island, they unceremoniously dumped a number of these old locomotives into a river embankment to help stop the river scouring out.
And that was K88's fate. She was buried on the banks of the Areti River in Southland and left to rust until she was dug out again in 1972 by the dedicated members of the Plains Vintage Railway. As you can see, there wasn't much left to work with. That wasn't a problem for these resourceful people.
Give her a little bit more, mate.
Yeah.
You can hear her kicking in, can't you?
She was completely rebuilt and finally returned to service in 2002. She's even been painted in her original heritage colours. Very flash. Bit loud for my taste, but I'm assured that this is exactly as she was turned out in 1877.
It's too hot, fireman!
Anyway, these days K88 has a new lease of life, heading up trains on the Plains Vintage Railway. all accounts, she's doing a fine job. Dunedin. And if Christchurch is an English city, then Dunedin is definitely a Scottish one. It was founded by Scots immigrants in 1848, and I feel at home here already. Why, I can even partake of that famous Scots delicacy, the haggis, if I care to. This is a traditional Dunedin welcome, presided over here by Mal Ryan.
Not much of a smile for that, eh?
It's a celebration of that peculiar Scottish delicacy, the haggis, which is kind of like an oatmeal and lamb pate, encased in a sheep's stomach. Yum.
Fair makes your mouth water just looking at it, doesn't it?
Of course, the great champion of the haggis was the Scottish bard Robbie Burns, who even wrote an address to it because he saw the haggis as a symbol of Scottish identity and national pride.
His knife, see rustic labour dick, and cuts ye up with ready slick, trenching your gushing entrails brick like ony ditch, and then, oh, what a glorious sight. So,
Right.
there you go, Scott. Have a wee whiskey to wash it out. That's the stuff.
Oh, it's an acquired taste, isn't it?
You think so?
Now I know why they have the whiskey.
Slanchevore. Slanchevore.
By 1860, Dunedin had become very wealthy through the gold discovered in the Otago hinterland. In fact, it became New Zealand's commercial capital.
And testament to that wealth is the magnificent Dunedin railway station.
A true cathedral to the Industrial Revolution. Completed in 1906, it was and still is the finest railway station in New Zealand, earning its designer, George Troop, a knighthood. What I really like about this old station is that it's the departure point for the Taieri Gorge Railway that's going to take us west into Big Sky country, the Central Otago.
If you're expecting more green hills and lush farming country up here in the Otago, forget it. It's a very steep and rugged landscape. And this journey's just as much of an adventure now as it was back in 1879 when this line began.
The Taieri Gorge Railway is part of the old Otago Central Railway. Most of the track has been pulled up, except for the 40 miles or so we're travelling on now, from Dunedin Station up to Middlemarch. But when the line was in full swing, it played a major part in the development of the Central Otago. Thousands of tonnes of farm produce and hundreds of thousands of head of livestock were railed yearly to Dunedin and all points north. Leela and Don Graham own Lamb Hill Station and have lived up here in the high country all their lives.
Yes, we have.
Once the railway was their only lifeline to the outside world. Everything they needed to bring in or ship out came by rail.
It was very sad to watch the sleepers being coming down the train when it was being pulled up.
Oh, so as they dismantled the line,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's pretty...
Very sad to see it coming down.
Right. He's got a pretty impressive beard, hasn't he?
Do you think so?
What, don't you?
Not really.
Really? Careful, mate. She sounds like she might get the hedge clippers out one day.
It's a possibility.
Looks like we're getting close to Pukerengi Station, which is the end of the line for this train, due to track maintenance. To get myself further up the line, I'm going to have to be a bit inventive. Middle of nowhere here. There's a high rail. Looks promising.
Oh, looks like we got a visitor, mate. G'day, fellas.
How's it going?
Oh, all right. How are you?
Good. Yeah, good.
Hey, you're not going through to Middlemans, right?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Yeah? Any chance of a lift?
Yeah, no worries. Jump in.
Oh, look, I'm happy to pitch in if you need
let
it
us
done.
go.
No problem. So, I guess things are busy up here. You've got a fair bit of line to look after.
Oh, yep.
My companions, Dave and Gary, are part of the Taieri Gorge track gang.
Keep your hands on the wheel, Gary.
Oh, no, no.
They're not exactly the types that would talk underwater. Still, they seem good enough sort of blokes, and I'm very glad of the lift.
Oh, this is great, guys.
That's all right, mate. No worries.
Easy way to go down the line in a high rail, eh?
Yeah.
Beats walking, doesn't it?
Oh, sure does.
Yeah.
Right there. You guys would know this bit of track like the back of your hands, wouldn't you?
Yep. Certainly do.
Right. Good.
Looks like they're going to take me up on my offer to pay my way.
Right.
Right there, Scott.
What have we got going here?
This is what we're going to do, mate.
Okay.
You ready to handle one of these?
What have you got there?
High-tech tool, mate.
Fairly primitive.
Yep.
All right.
My job is to replace the bolts on some track plates, which tend to wear out over time.
Plates off, slam a bit of grease on,
Right.
new bolts, and
Grease, bolts, new plates.
get into it.
It's all yours.
Okay, mate.
All right?
No problem at all. No problem at all.
So you'll be finished in 5 minutes.
Yeah, no worries. Sure. Haven't seen one of these for a while. I tell you what, using this whole thing's taking the history a bit too far.
How's it going there, Scott?
What's that?
Bit of modern technology, eh?
You guys!
Stand aside, mate. We'll show you how Kiwi does
That's it.
I think I've just been had.
I'm going to leave you to it now, mate.
These blokes did have some modern toys after all. I think I've just had some first-hand experience of that friendly rivalry that's supposed to exist between Aussies and Kiwis. Well, that's one up for them, I guess.
Oh, that's great, guys.
That's all right,
Thanks,
mate.
heaps.
Sweet.
I'll be hoofing it from here. See you
Catch you
later.
later.
Good on you.
Hey, Scott. Nice working with you, mate.
Good on you.
Sweet as.
See you later.
Sweet as. Well, that's a badge of acceptance if ever I heard one.
He's not a bad fella, that Aussie.
The tracks have been pulled up from here at Middlemarch right through to Clyde. 80 miles in all. It was a big railway. The old permanent way is still here though, and it's now known as the Otago Central Rail Trail.
You can walk along it, you can ride a bike along it, you can ride a horse along it. They even hold races along here. The only thing you can't do anymore is catch a train along it. But it's well worth the effort, because being an old track bed, it's very gently graded and slightly elevated. So, you're in the box seat for this magnificent countryside.
This cutting has seen a bit of history. It's the site of the Hyde Railway disaster.
On the afternoon of the 4th of July, 1943, the passenger train to Dunedin flew down the grade here and came into the curve at this cutting at a frightening 85 miles an hour. And right at this spot, the locomotive flew off the line and crashed into the side of the embankment. 21 people were killed, and at the time, it was New Zealand's worst railway disaster.
How did this tragedy happen? Well, it was a combination of too much alcohol on the part of the driver and excessive speed. Nice to have a rest for a moment.
This is the old gold mining town of Ophir. She's a pretty quiet place now. But back when the railway was running, this place was a real hive of activity. Now, I've jumped off the rail trail for a while because I'm expecting a lift which is going to take me on a bit of a shortcut. It's going to be an interesting one too, because it'll be a journey back in time before the Iron Horse. Hey, looking good. When you told me you were going to bring horses. Oh. This is great. Well, when you said you were going to bring a horse or two, I didn't expect a team of 5 in harness.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. This is excellent. What a rig. Oh.
Meet Graham and Raylene Cathcart. They live on a sheep farm around here and love nothing better than working their Clydesdales. George, Bobby, Prince, Clyde and Dolly. So much so, they even use them round the farm for hauling and ploughing the fields. So coming down to Ophir with the team to pick me up was no problem at all. Working with Clydesdales is a skill that Graham's father handed down to him as a boy. And it's a passion that's stayed with him all his life.
Gee there. Come on, George. Tell us about the team, mate.
Oh, they're getting old, I suppose, like we all are.
Yeah.
The one in the right front, I've had him since he's a 2-year-old. He's about 21 now.
Is he the leader?
Oh, one of them, yeah.
Yep.
You got to have 3 good front ones.
What about the back pair?
Not so serious, the back ones, they just got to follow.
What about the mare on the right?
Oh, she's all right if you look after her.
Yeah? What do you mean?
No, personality problem.
Personality problem, you say? In what way?
With humans.
In other words, she's a woman.
What's that?
All the rest of the horses are males.
Yeah.
And, she doesn't really like them.
This is fantastic. It's like travelling back in time, giving me a taste of what it was like even before the railways.
Hey, Graham, you got to do a bit of work on your road here, mate.
Yeah, looks like it.
What road, he says?
For me, this is another wonderful example of what I call New Zealiana. A real feel the people of the South Island have for the history of the place and honouring the old ways. For his part, working with horses has given Graham what he reckons is a realistic sense of just how fast a man is meant to travel.
Fairly deep.
And that's no faster than a horse can walk.
Yeah, is that what inspires you to do all this stuff?
Well, the world's moving too fast.
Is that right?
We're running out of time. Hey?
So is your idea to try and hold it up in your own way a bit?
Yeah, put the brakes on it a bit.
Well, this looks like me, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, eh? Well, Shanks is pony from now on.
Back on the rail trail, mate.
Yep, good on you.
That's
Have
fantastic.
a good day. Yeah, good on you, mate.
Good on you. You sure you don't want to run on to Queenstown?
No, too much work to do, mate.
Good on you.
Good
Thanks,
day.
Heath.
Thank you.
They tell me that Queenstown is just a hop, step and a jump over those mountains. Yeah, right.
Queenstown's the home of the adrenaline rush. You can do all manner of things here to scare yourself. That's all fine. My adrenaline rush is just down the end of the lake there.
And here she is, the Kingston Flyer. Just 25 miles around the shore of the lake from Queenstown lies the small hamlet of Kingston, the home of New Zealand's most famous train. The Flyer runs almost every day, covering the 10 miles of track back and forth between Kingston Station and the small farm station of Fairlight. Much of the credit for preserving the Flyer and keeping it going can be attributed to this man, Russell Glendinning.
But tell me, why is it called the Kingston Flyer?
Well, in the old days, of course, the horses didn't go very fast. And when the train came along in 1878, it was doing 40, 50 mile an hour against the horses 10. So instead of taking 2 days to come from Invercargill to Kingston, it only took 4 hours, 5 hours.
Wow.
So they reckoned it was flying.
Russell has been driving locomotives for 51 years, and there's a great story about him as a schoolboy. When he's asked by his headmaster what he wanted to be when he grew up, Russell replied, "Engine driver, sir." Then, many years later, a very old gentleman approached Russell on the Kingston station and said, "I see, Russell, but you have achieved your ambition." "Yes, sir," said Russell, "I have." Fairlight Station. And here the train has turned around for the return trip to Kingston. Russell reckons he never worked harder than when he retired to the Flyer. But somehow I don't think he minds. In fact, he loves it. And he hasn't lost any of his shunting skills either.
Russell! Oh, beautiful! Didn't feel a bump, didn't you? That's magic work.
Just for you.
Very delicate work on the brake there, mate. Great stuff. In the old days, the rails continued along to the end of the wharf here, so that the trains could meet up with the steamers who plied their trade along the lake. You can just imagine what it would have been like. The old Flyer ticking away on the end of the wharf here, smoke pouring out of its funnel,
mixing with more steam from the stack of the steamer. Passengers chatting and mingling as they went up the gangplank to the saloon. Goods for the sheep stations and remote towns along the lake being loaded into the hull. Livestock being herded onto the lower decks of the ship. Would have been quite a sight. A real hive of activity. A meeting of the whistles. I don't have to imagine this though. It's real. The old Earnslaw, and she's still working the lake. Built in 1912, she's one of the steamers that docked alongside the Kingston Flyer all those years ago. The Earnslaw was actually shipped up from Invercargill on the Kingston Flyer in pieces and assembled on the docks. Then, along with many other steamers, she spent nearly 60 years plying the waters of the lake, serving the people who lived on its shores, until once again, road transport gradually began to take over.
As you know, I love a good steam engine, and it doesn't matter to me whether it's running on the water or on tracks. Now, there's a big difference between a steam locomotive and a complex marine engine like these ones here, and it lies in the cylinders. 1, 2, 3.
A locomotive can take on coal more often than a steamship on water, so a steamship has to make the most of the energy it generates.
These beautiful machines are called triple expansion engines. And the essential difference between them and a steam locomotive is the way they use the steam. In a locomotive, it comes into the cylinders to drive the wheels and then out through the chimney once. Here, it gets used 3 times. Gee, it's warm in here, Ray.
Want to be here in the summertime.
The steam comes out of the boiler here, up and over into the first cylinder. Here. Then some valves control the steam into a second cylinder. Then, recycling even further, the steam gets used in a third big cylinder, which all drive the propeller shaft at the same speed, all the way down to the screws at the stern of the boat.
While there are other steamships still operating around the world, TSS Earnslaw is rare because she's still coal-fired. Down here in the engine room, everything is exactly as it was in 1912. Queenstown Harbour, and just in time too.
Now, remember that train trip we were planning over Arthur's Pass? Well, it's on, so I'm hot-footing it back to Christchurch.
And this is it, a trip that I've been dreaming about for a long time. And guess who's here? Christine from Weka Pass. Finally tore herself away from the tractors.
What we're about to ride on is one of the most scenic train journeys in the world, and we're doing it by steam.
This is a rare event and a major undertaking by Mainline Steam, an organisation dedicated to preserving steam locomotives and running them on the mainline. Ian Welsh, the founder of Mainline Steam, rode the steam trains up to the pass as a boy, and it's largely his vision that has seen the big locos steaming over the Southern Alps once again.
Well, with an extra oil tanker attached, it looks like we're all set for a great journey. Here we go.
Historically, this is the old Midland Railway line from Christchurch to Greymouth via the rich farming area of the Canterbury Plain.
Now, there had to be a good reason to want to build a railway up and over the Great Southern Alps back in the 1800s, because they're nothing short of formidable.
This mountain range is longer than the French, Swiss and Austrian Alps combined, and home to Mount Cook, the largest mountain in either New Zealand or Australia.
And there was a good reason: greed. It seems to be the thing that motivates a lot of pioneering history when you think about it. Over on the west coast, a gold rush had begun, and a huge population explosion happened overnight on this rugged and isolated part of the South Island. The miners found it easier to get their goods shipped across the Tasman Sea from Melbourne in Australia than to order their stuff in Christchurch and have it come around the coast of New Zealand. Now, this upset the merchants in Christchurch no end.
They wanted their piece of the golden pie as well. So they lobbied and lobbied until the government first agreed to build a road, then a railway. Both were considered major engineering feats in their day, but there were vast differences between the projects. The road only took 1 year to build. The railway, 40 years, from 1886 right through to 1923. And by the time the line was finished, the gold rush was well and truly over. But what took its place was black gold, good quality West Coast coal. And hauling it back to the ports at Christchurch has kept this line open ever since. Apart from the steep grades, there are 16 tunnels on the line and 4 incredible viaducts. This is the staircase viaduct, and at 238 feet or 72 metres, it's the highest one on the line. Whoa! We're just coming into the little settlement of Cass. Now, it's taken us about an hour and a half to get here from the Canterbury plain, but back at the turn of the last century, it took over 20 years to build this section of the line alone. At the time, Cass was home to 800 people during the construction period of this railway. Now, population just 1. The track ganger who looks after this section of the line.
You don't muck around when it says 55 k's, you do it, don't you?
We've got to stop to let one of the many coal trains go past.
Looks like the weather's closing in.
They tell me you can get all sorts of weather on the way to Arthur's Pass.
And for an Aussie like me, snow of any kind is exciting. But then you add a steam train to that mix, and it really becomes something special.
This is fantastic. Getting a bit of snow up here is like the icing on the cake.
It's things like this that make the trip over the pass so special. Look at this locomotive, looming out of the snow like a ghost from a bygone era. Then just as quickly as the weather comes in, it goes again. Arthur's Pass, 2,500 feet, or 757 metres above sea level. Named after Arthur Dudley Dobson, the surveyor who found the route over the Great Southern Alps.
What a fantastic journey, and it's not over yet. Just at the end of the platform is the Taieri tunnel. The entrance to it is just at the end of the old bridge there. The tunnel itself is 8.5 kilometres long.
We'll be inside the tunnel for at least 15 minutes. Far too long for us to steam through because the smoke from the fire would suffocate the crew. So these big diesels are being hooked up to haul us through. Right from the beginning, the Taieri tunnel was electrified to solve the ventilation problem.
Work on this tunnel finally commenced in 1908, but it wasn't until 1918 that the two crews working from either end finally met in the middle. And the extraordinary thing is they're only out by 3/4 of an inch. That's 19 millimetres. It's a real testament to the surveyor's skills.
It took another 5 years to widen the tunnel, concrete it and lay track because the conditions were so difficult. The rock in this mountain is fractured and it needed heavy timbering all the way, and draining the water from the tunnel was a constant problem. At the other end, the diesels are taken off and we're away again, under our own steam, heading for Greymouth. I never would have imagined that so many fantastic rail journeys could be packed into one small island. And what I've really enjoyed is the unique window they've opened onto this truly remarkable country. And thankfully, I think a little bit of New Zealiana has rubbed off on me, and I definitely feel better for it. Greymouth Station and the end of the journey.
Well, that's about it for our epic journey around the South Island of New Zealand. It finishes right here at the depot at Greymouth. All that's left to do now is spin the old loco around, drop the fire and clean up. For me, well, I'll be seeking out more fantastic adventures. So, I'll see you somewhere down the line.